Hello guys, and welcome to another video on the JDT15 channel. Today, we're diving into the New Year's Blitz shit show by looking at the reviews on both the app and Google Play Store, old and new. We'll explore what players are saying about the game and take a look at Wargaming's hilarious responses, which are totally not AI generated. Trust me. I'll also share some of my own thoughts along the way. Before we jump in, I just want to say a quick thanks for all the support recently. The channel has been steadily growing as I've been putting out so much content, and it's great to see so many of you enjoying it. On top of that, we've reached 100 subscribers, helped along by a few shoutouts from some amazing creators in the community. To all you new viewers, make sure to join the Discord, link in the description, where I post announcements, and you can have an extra vote in the channel's direction and future. Here's to a fantastic 2025, and I just hope it hasn't already been ruined by Wargaming's usual greed. The first review we'll look at is from a year ago, written by Amy Layla. It opens with a simple yet telling statement. This game used to be good. Amy points out that bugs have been getting progressively worse. A specific example highlighted is the unbalanced matchmaking. If your team gets IGM bots, while the enemy team has USN cruisers, you're almost guaranteed to lose. On top of that, there's the issue of the obvious bot evasion, which has been a long-standing complaint. The community has been complaining for a while, but the developers have been too lazy to listen. Bots are undeniably one of Blitz's biggest problems right now. As Amy mentions, they can completely ruin the game. Often, you can predict the outcome of a match, win or loss, before it even starts, based solely on the bot distribution. Their erratic behavior has only gotten worse with recent updates. This isn't a new issue either. The community has been voicing concern for years. In fact, I went back through the Blitz community server and found thousands of comments about bots all the way back to 2017 when the game first launched. Now you might argue that coding smart AI back then was more limited, but that excuse doesn't hold up with the same issues persistent today. Bots making unrealistic 360-degree turns, USM bots being overpowered, and bot CVs being utterly useless. Ironically, I even found an old post where someone complained that bot accuracy should be nerfed. Fast forward to today, and the bots can't hit the side of a barn from the inside. The most frustrating part? These same problems have plagued the game since launch, and yet Wargaming still insists they're relying on feedback and actively working on fixes. Sure, guys, any day now. Lastly, I don't want to say this because it might become a permanent solution, but a simple fix, in which we have been asking for years, is a toggleable button to not get any bots and randoms. Us more competitive players don't care about longer wait times. After that rant, let's move on to this gem of a review. This one comes from a returning player, written 3 years ago, and surprise, surprise, it's yet another complaint about how fun the game used to be before it became riddled with issues. Pretty standard stuff at this point. What makes this review stand out, though, is the response from Wargaming. Because the player mentioned re-download and graphics twice, the automated response bot decided they must be having technical issues. Seriously, Wargaming? How are we supposed to improve the game if you're not even reading feedback, instead leaving it to an AI to churn out generic replies? This is the level of care we're dealing with, folks. Next up, we have another comment from 3 years ago, by Roscoe1982, and it's yet another example highlighting Wargaming's greed. Roscoe describes the game as repetitive and criticizes the developers for expecting players to spend hundreds of dollars to make any meaningful progress. Their conclusion? Disappointed and uninstalling. This comment feels especially relevant given the latest fiasco. Whether it's due to declining purchases, sheer greed, or both, the higher-ups at Wargaming have decided to raise prices even further. As Roscoe points out, it's nearly impossible to get anywhere in the game without reaching for your wallet. And the response from Wargaming? We are sorry you are not satisfied with the game. Fantastic effort there, devs. Really tackling the core issues with that one. The final review from the App Store is by Feralswan. posted just last Saturday after the whole drama blew up. It's less of a review and more of a warning to new players. Unless you're prepared to pay heaps of cash, don't expect to make any progress. Feralswan also points out that you'll never get anything worthwhile and will just end up wasting your money. We've already talked about the pay to progress model, but let's address the abysmally bad crates. In any other game, if you told someone you opened 900 crates and got nothing, they'd probably joke that you're due to win the lottery tomorrow. Say that to a Blitz player though, and it's just an average Tuesday. The drop rates are truly horrendous. 2% for Navaran late last year was outright criminal. This brings me to something else, highlighted by a viewer and something I came across while researching my Blitz monetization video, which if you haven't seen it yet, check it out, link in the description. In Europe, there's a law stating that if you gamble 100 euros, you must have at least a 30% chance of winning something back. This is precisely why Wargaming avoids operating in the European region, because their practices are not only unethical, but outright illegal there. At this point, it's fair to say that casinos are less greedy than wargaming. As Feralswan aptly puts it, Blitz is nothing more than a cash grab. So save yourself the trouble and avoid wasting your money. Before we move on to the Google Play Store, we just have to appreciate, although not as impressive as War Thunder per se, the recent review bombing. It just shows how important change is to the community and how much we can make an impact. The first review comes from our good old skill issue, friend Mime, posted just last week. Mime remarks that this game looked like it was on the road to a revival a few months ago, but the higher-ups have once again derailed it by hiking in-game purchase prices to absurd levels. In some countries, the cost of a pixel boat now rivals basic necessities like food. The gameplay itself? Again, another dull, endless loop of grinding. All hope for Blitz is lost, and the community has given wargaming far more chances than they deserve. This isn't the first time we've seen Blitz seemingly headed in the right direction, only to be yanked back into pay-to-win territory with non-grindable events. I remember making a video back in July 2023, during one of those brief moments of optimism, only for Wargaming to completely crush that hope a month later. We've already discussed the price hikes enough, but it's baffling how tunnel vision Wargaming's higher-ups are. They clearly don't realize how ridiculously high these in-game item prices have gotten. Then there's the issue of repetitiveness. The devs might argue, oh, but we're introducing unique ships with unique skills. But as I pointed out in my last video, 90% of the so-called new content is just copy-paste. Finally, let's address the community's resilience. Yes, we've given Wargaming far too many chances, but it's only because we want this game to improve. Unfortunately, as Mime's review and countless other comments show, Wargaming isn't listening. Instead, they keep churning out the same, empty, copied responses while ignoring the feedback that could actually save this game. Next, we have a concise but impactful comment from a well-known community figure, Swiss. They express frustration after years of what they describe as dismissive responses from Wargaming, finally deciding to quit after yet another bot-filled match. Despite having invested real money into the game, they felt let down by being consistently thrown into bot-dominated matches. While we've already discussed the issue with bots, Swiss highlights something just as troubling, the shallow responses from Wargaming that seem designed to placate rather than address. This includes everything from the generic automated replies to the empty apologies and the small compensations handed out for the game's persistent problems. The reality is that while the more involved parts of the community, those active on YouTube, Discord, and other forums, can see through these tactics, the majority of players just accept them. Wargaming seems to rely on this disconnect to keep people spending money without making meaningful improvements. This leads me to a theory I've been considering for a while. What if Blitz was never really meant to be a long-term community-focused game, but rather a cleverly disguised cash grab? Think about it. On PC and Legends, major issues get resolved pretty quickly to maintain player satisfaction. But on Blitz, the focus is on releasing new, monetized content instead of fixing fundamental problems. It's almost as if they know the mobile player base is easier to milk financially, so they prioritize short-term profits over player retention. When the game eventually shuts down, and let's be real, that day will come, it's unlikely we'll see a large-scale backlash or demands for refunds. The mobile player base will have already moved on, and Wargaming will have pocketed the profits. It might just be a theory, but doesn't it explain a lot about how this game has been handled? Anyway, that's enough speculation. Let's move on. The next review comes from Troy Duxbury, written during the infamous login bug saga that Wargaming took far too long to resolve. Troy describes an incredibly frustrating experience of having to delete and reinstall the game every time they wanted to play. Despite being a loyal player since the game's launch and a paying customer, they received no meaningful compensation for their trouble. To make matters worse, they fixed the issue themselves 2 days before getting a canned response from customer support offering the same basic solution they'd already figured out. This isn't just a one-off case either. As I've discussed before in my video with Bob last month, which, if you haven't seen, is linked in the description, Wargaming's customer support is frankly abysmal. It often feels like they take an eternity to respond, and by the time they do, most players have already had to solve the problem themselves. And here's the big question. How do you expect people to engage with or spend money on your game if they can't even log in to play? Wargaming needs to get its priorities straight. Customer support isn't just about answering tickets. It's about maintaining trust and ensuring a good experience for paying and free-to-play users alike. This kind of neglect drives players away faster than anything else. Finally, we have a review from Vulture, one of our past community contributors, who sums things up perfectly. They highlight what we've been discussing this whole time. Wargaming and the developers have completely ruined the experience for players with their lack of communication, neglect of bugs and issues, and, most recently, the massive price increases across the board without even informing the community. The end result? A game that feels like it's only about money, with players left in the dust. There's not much more to say. This review paints an exact picture to what's happening now. The community understands that wargaming is a business that needs to generate revenue, but this has gone far beyond any rational thinking and reason. The price hikes are outrageous, and the refusal to address long-standing issues like bugs and bot problems makes it clear that the player experience isn't a priority. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge Maddie, our community manager, who has been stuck in the middle of this mess. She's had to deal with an overwhelming amount of feedback from the community, myself included, as well as people unfairly directing their frustrations at her. It's not her fault that the developers refused to listen. If Wargaming had taken feedback seriously, even just over the past year, we could be looking at one of the best mobile games out there. But let's face it, the community knows that's never going to happen. I'll be sharing this video with Maddie, and I can only hope that Wargaming takes something away from all this, though realistically, I won't hold my breath. Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. We'll return to gameplay content this Friday, so until then, JT15, out.